This is the standard Urgoz Spikeway VoS bar. When you're going to do the second ball, you'll need Mystic Regeneration, especially when you're starting out, so drop Even Escape. Pcons are extremely helpful when you're doing the second ball. At bare minimum, you should pop Cupcake, Apple, Corn and Pie. Other Pcons will also help, and so I would recommend that you pop full Pcons if you can. At the start of the run, you and the tank should run together past the first wave of vampires. Make sure that you wait for the tank, because if you run ahead, you might make his life difficult. Use Mirage Cloak and IU as you aggro the first group. DC onto the bark and then carry on running forwards. Make sure that all of the dredge behind you are broken. For the next bit, you'll need to aggro the first group of dredge, but your aim is to trigger the groups coming from the left and the right. Run forward until you see them start moving towards you, and then you can run back and break the first group. When you aggro the dredge, they'll use Spirits of Disenchantments. These can be quite deadly to you because they can rip off your Mirage Cloak, even though they should block. To prevent this, make sure you use cover enchants while you're doing the ball. This means using Mirage Cloak and then pressing either Sand Shards or Staggering Force. Once you see that all three dredge groups have settled at the Serpent, you can run forward and grab them. Make sure you get all three groups and start pulling them back. Keep an eye out for where your team is, but if you've got Mystic Regeneration on your bar, you've got no rise and you can hold them for as long as you need. Maintain Mirage Cloak, Sand Shards, I Am Unstoppable and Mystic Regeneration while you're waiting for the team. Once the ball is ready, and keep an eye out for the Dredge Gardeners because they can be a bit slow to come in, DC onto one of the casters. Wait for the melee to settle. Before you spike, check that EOE and off damage has been hit. That's the simple way to do second ball as dervish. Now I'll show you how you can do the Serpent as well as pulling the second ball as dervish. This is quite a lot harder, and I do recommend that you pop full Pcons and that you make sure you have proper gear. This means you should have a Q9 customized Scythe. If your Scythe isn't Q9, check your attributes and make sure that you still meet the rec. Like before, run up to the first group and trigger the ones coming in from the left and the right. Break them and then wait for them to settle on the Serpent. It might be useful to ping the Serpent so you have an easier time selecting it later. This time you'll need to pay attention to the Spirit of Disenchantment, and it's more likely to mess you up. Make sure you keep Mirage Cloak up and covered as you run in. Once all three groups have settled next to the Serpent, you'll want to use IU and DC in. Wait for the melee to settle on you and make sure that they are tight to the Serpent. You want a good ball so that you can get enough damage in to kill it. Recast Sand Shards after you've used Aeromites and keep using it whenever you notice that it's dropped. Keep Mirage Cloak up and try and use IU if you've lost it, as you will get knocked down by the dredge. Once the Serpent has died, you can begin to do the second ball again. This is like before, you just need to run back a bit. With Mystic Regeneration, there should be no problem as you'll have plenty of HP. Bring the dredge back as you did before, stopping at the top step and wait for them to ball. When the team arrives, jump in, wait for EOE and spike. When killing the Serpent with Mystic Regeneration, you may have noticed that it's quite slow to die. With a fast team, this can mean that you're actually late to do the second ball and you're actually costing the team time. So, instead of using Mystic Regeneration, once you're comfortable, you can replace it with Honour. Without Mystic Regeneration, you're going to be taking a lot more damage and you'll slowly be degenning to poison. This means it's very important that you have a Vampiric Scythe. It's also helpful if you pop Soup, as this reduces the degeneration that you'll be having. However, when you're doing this spike, you'll be on a timer. If the team takes too long or you take too long, you're going to die. Like before, run forward and trigger the groups. Once the dredge has settled, prepare to spike the Serpent. This time, you want to precast VoS before you jump in so that you're able to spike quickly. Watch out for the disenchantment and make sure that you're covered. Place Honour on top of the Serpent and wait for the dredge to settle. The Serpent should die very quickly. Once you've killed the Serpent, stop attacking and then start running away. This will break the dredge and give you a little bit of space. You want to make sure that the melee aren't on top of you so that you're not taking too much damage before you can finish the ball. For some runs, you're going to need to wait for your team a little bit before they're ready. If they're extra slow, instead of waiting here and making the ball, you can run around and break the dredge. Try not to completely break them, but just make them run away a little bit and then stop, so that you can save your HP. As before, wait for the team to be ready and then jump it and spike. The final bar that you might want to run to do second ball and Serpent is with EE instead of DC. This allows you to keep up with the team better for other parts of the run, but it does mean that you won't be able to spike certain balls, so if you're the only dervish, I would recommend bringing DC always. This is also a little bit harder to do as you can't jump onto the Serpent and you have no way to heal. Once again, run up and trigger the groups and wait for them to come in. Since you don't have DC, we'll want to approach this Serpent a little bit differently. This time, don't precast VoS. You'll need to run past the disenchantment and you might get hit too many times and then lose it. Instead, run up to the dredge until you're nearly in range and start sidewalking so the melee start to ball on you. Ball onto the Serpent and put down Honour, use VoS, and then spike. Like before, break the dredge to give yourself a little bit of room and then pull them back. And get the ball ready for the team to spike. This time you won't have DC. You'll need to walk the melees back in, so make sure the team is giving you space. You can run back for the initial distance, but when you're about halfway, start sidewalking to avoid scattering the ball by speed boosting. One problem when doing Serpent Spike, especially with Honour, is that you're likely to cause the melees to scatter. This can also happen with doing just the second ball, but it's less likely and you'll also have way more fuel, so they're going to die with EOE. The other problem is that with the Serpent Spike, it means there's not much EOE fuel for this spike. That can be a problem as it can leave a few dredge alive, and ideally you want everything to die. One thing to be aware of when approaching the first group of dredge is that they can shadow step to you. When they're shadow stepping to you, you might end up getting stuck, so be aware and keep an eye on the melee, and if you notice they aren't following you anymore, it might be because you're stuck. If the first spike goes badly for the team, you might be waiting a long time with the ball. This can be a problem if you don't have Mystic Regeneration. When that happens, you can keep breaking the dredge after you finish the Serpent and wait for the team to show up. When you see the first person approaching, you can normally start the ball. If the team takes too long, you're probably going to die. To avoid this, you can break the dredge completely and then just wait. Because of poison, you're not going to regen, so it's unlikely that you'll actually be able to do the ball, but you might be able to get away with it like I did here. However, bringing Honour when you do the Serpent Spike can have other uses. It can be useful in Drinker Room, on Wolf pop-ups, and it's also a nice damage boost on Urgoz. Just don't Honour for the big spikes as it's not needed and it might make you late.